3. The time is 7:02 p.m. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for all.
Moving to consideration of the agenda, the main topics we have tonight are a public hearing for special use permit 2023-03, which is a Torchport 2024 Memorial Day event. We'll have that public hearing and consider that event tonight as a commission. Then we'll have zoning ordinance review of our final article, Article 14, and we'll be in position to button that up, and then talk a little bit about 2024 meeting calendar and things coming up for 2024. Any questions about the agenda for this evening? If not, could I have a motion to approve the agenda as drafted?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. This evening, is there anyone that has any conflicts of interest on the agenda items for today?
I will be leaving
You
for
will
the
be
fun
leaving.
part.
Okay, so that makes sense because you are within 300 feet of the said event space. Okay. Moving on, approval of the meeting minutes from October 10th and then October 23rd, starting with October 10th. Any edits or questions on these minutes of October 10th? Who drafted these minutes? Yeah, they were good. I like the way she puts them together. Any edits? There's a typo?
Is it your name? No.
Where's that typo?
Oh,
We'll need to make that adjustment. With that adjustment, may I have a motion to approve the October 10th, 2023 minutes?
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meetings of October 10th, 2023 are approved. Let's move on to the meeting minutes of October 23rd. There are no edits. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of October 23rd?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting minutes of October 23rd, 2023 are approved. Now we move into the public comment on the agenda items other than the public hearing. Any public comments for this evening? If not, move into the correspondence. Any correspondence, Sarah, for tonight?
No correspondence?
Any unfinished business?
No.
Okay, we'll move into the new business portion of the agenda. We will now open up the public hearing for the special use permit 2023-03, Torchport 2024 Memorial Day event.
Can I just make note
Yes.
for the record that Laura's leaving at 7:05?
Thank you. So for that, if there's any public comments regarding this special use permit application. If not, we would ask Mr. Bays, do you have any comments you'd like to make this evening on this? You don't have to, just quick, okay? If not, that's totally fine. So I guess, Sarah, maybe if you could just summarize the application at this point?
Sure, so this should look familiar. This is pretty much the same application that you've had the last 2 or 3 years related to this. So it's for Memorial Day in 2024, doing the fly-in with pancake breakfast out at the Torchport Air Park. They're also doing some camping on the runway for some of the pilots as well. So, and as we've discussed before, although it's not a part of the application, but you're still doing fireworks this year, but they are consumer grade, so they're not regulated by the township. They're allowed under state law to be done. That will still happen, so just of note, but that is not a part of your review or your application. I can go into more detail if you want to, but like I said, it's the same application as last year.
Is there any differences in the scheduling, any differences in the logistics or
No, not that
as
I'm
far as
aware of.
parking or anything of that nature?
No.
The same. Anything different? I mean, we're getting the application much earlier.
Right.
Was there any particular reason for that that was provided
don't-
by the applicant?
No, I don't know.
Just wanted to get it done.
Right, the reasoning for that. I mean, I'm glad since last month we didn't have a quorum, and so we had to move it back a month already. So better to have that happen right now than at the last minute. And as far as I recall from last year, we didn't have any complaints last year, or if there were any issues, they were dealt with during the event. I didn't receive any phone calls about it. I can't speak for the supervisor, but I just don't recall having a discussion about anything of issue after the last event.
Okay. No issues with parking or anything of that nature that we ran across, or seems like
Not that I've heard of or aware of, no.
prior year we had a few things. I remember some discussion around the Bay Colony Road and stuff, but it seems like.
Yeah,
that
that's
didn't
the only thing I was going to ask. Is there a parking plan? There was a little discrepancy in the application whether parking was planned or not. And so just want to make sure that there's plenty of safe space and keep people and cars away from each other.
Okay. On the site, and then they, in the application too, on the application, it talks about no parking on Bay Colony signage to be used. I know at one time that was an issue. I think last year, did you do no parking on Bay Colony? And that worked fairly well? Okay. So,
Great.
I drove past and I don't recall seeing anybody parked there at all, so.
So there are, not to push you along, but there are standards for approval you'll need to go through. They're on page 16 of 27 of your packet. Once you get to that spot in your review, we just need to go through and answer those standards before you're able to make a motion, which I have a recommended motion on page 18 of 27. Very similar, in fact, the same as last year. And now that I say that, let me verify the dates are right in those conditions. No, so it's the 24th through the 27th, and I thought I had updated that, so I updated one but not the other. So we will need to just clarify that in the conditions that I've provided, that it should be May 24th, not May 23rd through May 27th.
Correct?
3 days,
No, 3 conditions.
yes.
So Sarah, as part of preparing with the review itself, obviously you've documented here all of the different aspects of things that you go through. Anything of note that you would highlight here, other than your notes that you provided in the documentation?
No, I don't have anything additional for this application.
Any questions on the planning commission before we go into the standards? So Sarah, when we go under special use, I think you said they're on bottom of page 16. So these are the ones that the planning commission should check off, and we'll go through each one to make sure, kind of from a thorough review perspective. So let's hit these.
Yeah, and you kind of can just do a straw poll if you want to, Andy, just say number 1. And then if anybody has any comments or concerns or needs anything to be addressed, speak up. Otherwise, kind of moving on to the next one. and having a discussion. But Andy, you don't have to read each one, and you don't need a motion on each one. It would just kind of
Okay.
be a discussion and any conversation.
We'll close the public hearing prior to that.
Yeah, you can.
So anything else before we dive into that then? That's a good point, Kevin. Thank you. So with that, we will close the public, actually, I'm going to give a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
There was at the beginning.
We always had that.
Oh, yeah. It's-
Yeah, there was, at least that I meant to, but you can, if you'd like to make public comments, absolutely, please come forward.
I just have a couple of questions.
Can you just state your name, please, for the record?
Deb Graver, 1227 Beachfront Lane, Keewaydin 49648. One question I have is, the motion that's drafted that's in your packet, is that the motion that you're working from? Because the parcel numbers don't coincide with the public notice that I received. And another question I have is, if Mr. Bass had filled out the form and put in that this would be a special use that would be ongoing year after year, and it would be the Friday prior to Memorial Day through Memorial Day, would this be a use that he would need to come back to the Planning Commission year after year? Because special uses usually run with the land, and it just seems odd that our Torchport Condo Association LLC is being billed for all of these permits that are needing to be done year after year, rather than Torchport Air Park LLC, which is who owns some of this commercial property, but Torchport Condominium Association LLC owns the runways that this is being done on. And also, I'm just curious how this correlates with the camping zoning that's in the zoning ordinance regarding owning the property if you're going to camp on it. I'm all for a plane flying in and a guy camping under his wing, but when you're pulling in campers and trailers, it seems like that should go to Barnes Park, since we have a lovely campground just north of here. So those are my questions that I'd like to have answered tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comments this evening? If not, get a motion to approve closing the public hearing aspect of this meeting.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? So with that, let's discuss questions that were raised during the public hearing portion of it before we get into the standards. The first question was, the motion as drafted doesn't pertain to the, we hadn't gotten to that motion yet, but the motion as drafted that you had proposed doesn't match the parcels.
And we can update that. I just made a note. To update that, it's missing 325-025-00. That was on the application that didn't get brought over to the motion. So we can update, I made a note to include that as one of the parcels.
Okay, so when we get to that motion, we'll want to make sure we get clarification before we propose it. Now, regarding this, seems like I recall this question coming up before regarding the special use permit and whether it applies or goes with the land versus in this instance, it's for a limited time period. So can you comment on that for us, Sarah?
Sure. So, I mean, typically your special land uses do, go with the land and go forever. These applications have been for kind of, a 3-day period. And I think when we started talking about this, especially in the first year, if you would have came in here to get approved to do it forever, it likely would not have been approved, right? Because there were lots of questions and concerns about the event and what was happening. And so to kind of look at it on an annual basis for the outdoor events. Outdoor events typically are not in your zoning ordinance in this way. They should be a standalone ordinance that are approved in a different way because it doesn't function well in the zoning ordinance kind of for an annual review for a permit. So we'll revise that process with the draft zoning ordinance so that it is something that's not this process.
So there's nothing that precludes it being approved for a specific time period as a special use permit?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's his application and he's proposing it for the 3 days, and they're 3 days in 2024. And Once those days happen, essentially there is no special use permit remaining to be able to operate under. So that's why you see it every year.
Okay. And then regarding the camping in general, I do recall discussing camping when we were going through our proposed rewrite pretty extensively. Can you comment a little bit for the commission on the differences between in the current zoning ordinance and our proposed ordinance going forward, how this might be impacted, assuming we do adopt the proposed ordinance?
It's a good question because I don't remember off the top of my head on the proposed ordinance.
If
How
I
we
might
dealt with it.
interject. So the question was raised last permit time, if I'm correct. Is that right, Deb? Okay, well, I'm almost certain it was raised, again, to your question of the point. And at that point, when we all worked through this process, after the review of it, it stood and we went ahead and approved it based on what we were dealing with per zoning and what we were at that time. Now, I know as going through the rewrite, as we've talked about as such, I don't know that that really comes into play for this particular special use permit. So I would revert back to the way it was when we approved this for last year.
So would that be one of the conditions then, proposed conditions?
So
No,
I,
I think, I'm going to be right up brutally honest, the conditions are met in my eye based on
So-
what we went through last year.
but I think what we need to do is get clarity on, I think what we'll have to do is back up to the second question for tonight was, is there anything that precludes us from approving a special use permit for a period of time? The answer is no.
No, and that's where this is just a special event. The camping's related to a special event. It's not a campground that exists forever. It exists for 3 days and it's camping related to the specific event. I mean, he could, I suppose, come in and apply for a special use permit for a campground in the commercial district. It is a use that's allowed as a special use permit. That's not what the request is for. The request is to use it as a part of the event for 3 days. So there's no reason that you could, there's nothing that would stop you from approving that use as a part of the outdoor event.
Okay, so what I'm going to suggest then is that, and again, I would love reaction from the commission, is that in our January meeting, and maybe even when this particular piece adjourns, but because the same question applies, we'll have to pull up the proposed ordinance, go through the camping thing, think of it in context for this application, and think about what implications it has or doesn't have as we go forward.
I mean, I would argue that even if the zoning ordinance talked about camping again in the draft, that with unless your ordinance related to outdoor events or temporary events or whatever you want to call these, mass gatherings, type of things, that unless that ordinance, when you draft it, say you can't allow camping as a part of the event, you still could apply for camping under the event for the limited amount of time, and it would not be a campground. I don't have that ordinance. I can't see into the future to see exactly what it'll say, if it will or won't say that. Potentially, if it, for some reason, would not allow for camping, then he would need to go through and get a campground permit and use it for 3 days, if that's what he wants to do, or use it for more, under the draft.
So the draft wouldn't necessarily change the process that we end up going through.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure that it would.
Okay. Any questions for the commission on this then at this point?
I have one other comment. I apologize, totally slipped my mind. But our condo association has been special assessed for $1,350,000 to pave the east-west runway sometime this next year. How is that going to be factored into this mix if there's?
That's not part of.
I
our
know
discussion
it's not, but if there's a runway that's closed and
Yeah,
and
we
you've got one runway that's open, I'm just curious how that's going to factor into.
yeah. Thank you for your
Just
comments.
so that the commission's aware that, and
Thank
maybe
you
it
for your
won't even be
comments, ma'am.
done.
Thank you. So any other questions as it relates to the questions that were raised during the public hearing? Okay, with that, let's move into the standards. So we're on the bottom of page 16 where it says special use standards, standard number 1. Any comments from any commission members regarding standard number 1?
No.
If not, standard number 2?
No.
Number 3? Number 4? I would say only comment on number 4 is that, and I think it's been addressed, Sarah, with your review of things like traffic and flow and parking. And then obviously there's a couple things contacting the fire department to get clearance for fireworks and things of that source. So, okay, any further on 1 through 4? So Sarah, the next group of standards under D, do we have to go through all those as well?
No, those are just if you wanted to require additional items. So this is, if you wanted to have additional conditions or something like that, if there's anything here that caught your eye that you'd like to
Okay.
require.
So with that, I'd ask the commission to review standards under D, see if there's anything that strikes at you or raises any questions. Not, then before we move into a motion, any final questions about this special use application? Hearing none. So Sarah, at this point, we need to make an adjustment on the recommended motion.
Yeah, so all of the parcel numbers that are existing there are correct, but there is the addition of one more parcel, and it's parcel 0514 325 025 00. And then on the proposed conditions, number 3, it should say May 24th through May 27th.
So that added parcel number was 05-14-325-025-00.
Correct.
So given that, we have a motion regarding the special use permit. Who would like to make that motion? Jeff?
So moved.
Actually, can you be more specific?
I'm
What you-
sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yes, forgive me. Motion to accept the special use permit for the air park, for the Torchport Air Park. Parcel numbers is listed from Memorial Day weekend for outdoor event.
Any conditions within that motion?
Yes, the outside agency permits are required. Activities are to be limited to those contained in the applications, and the dates are limited to May 24 to May 27 of 2024.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second.
Discussion. We have a vote, roll call vote. Jason?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Thank you. The special use permit 2023-03 is approved for Torchport Air Park for the dates and conditions outlined in the motion. Okay, thank you. Sarah, do you have all that?
Mhm. Oh, sure.
Yes, thank you.
Different year, but nothing changes.
Yeah, thanks for putting that on. The fundraisers,
So we're gonna, so we're gonna
no,
go,
I
we're gonna move into
Thank you.
we're gonna move into the zoning ordinance review of Article 14.
Perfect. And I'll just make note that Laura returned at 7:28.
Thank
That's
you.
just so that Jackie can write it in the minutes when she's watching the video.
So I just realized that I don't have a hard copy of said Article 14. So Sarah, if you want to start walking us through.
Definitions now.
Yeah, so as you'll recall, it's been a couple of months, but we worked through the rest of the zoning ordinance. The only remaining article for our first time review through is the definitions. So while Andy pulls up his portion of the ordinance related to that, I'll just give you a little bit of where we're headed and what we're doing. So once we get through the definition section here, I'll take all of the notes from all the meetings that we've had, plug them into the draft zoning ordinance, and then I'll bring it to you back as a full copy so that you can verify that I took your notes and did what you said to that. And then we would move forward with scheduling a public hearing, and then moving it through the county and the township board. Just like we do with any zoning amendment, it's the same process as we go through, through the whole document. At the public hearing, you can make additional changes, and we may want to have a public hearing anyways, just to, have public hear what the public has to say about this new document, regardless. So I don't want to make it seem like it's being pushed through, but that's just the process. Once we get through this, if it looks good, we move to the next step. At any time, if the planning commission needs to take more time with it, we definitely can. Moving forward with that. I would think that I would expect us to get through the definitions tonight, and I will work through the edits. Likely, I'm guessing we would talk about this at our February meeting, just because I would like to give you more than a weekend to take a look through the ordinance. I'd like to be able to have it done for you, maybe for the January meeting. We could give you full copies, new copies of the ordinance, and then review it at the next meeting, unless for some reason we're busy and we need to schedule a special meeting or something like that. But that would be my kind of plan moving forward, just to give you enough time to read through it. I know you're all going to want to, you're just waiting for it. I'm going to sit as soon as you get it and read through it. But so for definitions, I have made, a couple of notes as we've walked through on definitions maybe I need to look at or revise. But did anybody have any definitions, maybe just in the first couple, like A through G, that they wanted to talk about a little bit more in depth? Yeah. Sure did, right?
Yeah.
And so definitions, how I crafted your definitions list that you have here is I looked at kind of standard words and definitions that I typically use and lay out. We revised some of the names of some of the uses. We need to make sure the definitions reflect that. But I also pull your definitions from your current ordinance and kind of compare to like a typical definition we would use versus what you're using. I'm looking to clarify, make them legal, make it clean, clear to be able to read and understand. But I'm not looking in your definition to really change your policy from what you were currently doing. So, your corner lots are still treated the same, your height's still treated the same, things like that, as we go through the process.
Do you want us to just start spewing things or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one, accessory building or structure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about anyone else, but to me, I don't know, do we want to include structure there? Or are we defining accessory building or structure? I assume it's supposed to be accessory building or structure, but could you read it either way? Is that confusing?
Mm-hmm. I'll make a note.
Maybe even just like a colon or something there to
Right.
put those two words
Formatting.
together. Yeah.
adult daycare home, is it fewer than 6 adults or more adults? Do we get rid of or more adults?
Daycare home.
Adult daycare home,
Um,
fewer than 6 adults, and then get rid of or more adults? Or is that not really what it's trying to say?
no, that's weird. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Good catch.
Adult foster care facility means a home or facility. I guess one thing with these the adult foster care ones just kind of drove me nuts. But like, are they lining up with the state of Michigan or something? It'd be cool if
Yes.
They are the same?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Did you say they're lining up with definitions in the state? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like they are. I guess with that adult foster care facility, we're using the word facility in or what we're defining, and it's also used in the definition that, I don't know, it didn't help me any.
Facility isn't necessarily in a home. Like the other ones are home, AFC homes typically is what people call them. So those are in your home versus the facility would be like a large operation. Right. More than 20, then you get into the facility type of thing.
If those match the state of Michigan
Yeah.
thing, then cool. I hated them, but cool. Agricultural employee housing. Do we want to get rid of the last during the agricultural season? Because I feel like it's fair to count it as agricultural employee housing regardless of when they might they might employ them year round or not want to lose them, and so they just stay there year round even though they're only working during the season.
Yeah, and that would be up to the township to decide. That's not something
I feel like
you're required to have.
with one of the agricultural housing, one of the last ones that we changed, there was something regarding that.
Does anybody have concerns if it's only during the season or not? I mean, you have to be a worker to be able to live in it.
Which just brings up a great point, because there are some folks that live here all year round.
And there may be work to be done that's not necessarily, during the cherry season, right? There's other, cherries may not be a good example versus something that's more labor intensive all year long.
I mean, Kings, they have their juice processing facility now. They work that all year round. So
It seems like I don't have an issue striking it as Laura suggests. I think that the term season could have a broad definition, just like Jason said. I mean, you could argue that.
Right, that's their whole season.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see that.
Anyone else have issues with that?
Because if you take out the agricultural season or an agricultural season, then it becomes permanent housing potentially, right?
Yeah, it changes from temporary housing of employees.
Right. So maybe it's okay, but they're going to live there for, years and years. It seems like that's a different use for the property.
And they may, I mean, there's some farms that have like a caretaker, like the farm manager, and they live on site and they help maintain the farm, and they may have employees that come and go different seasons and things like that, but they're always there. If that person should be able to live there on the property, or if they need to live somewhere else.
So get rid of the word temporary too.
Well, I'd be more comfortable with striking the agricultural season like you suggest, but leaving the term temporary there, because temporary then, because I'm not sure the whole purpose of here is to set up permanent housing. It might be semi-permanent in the sense that they live there all the time. So I don't know we should go too far by making it so we're boxing ourselves in that they can just live there forever.
I mean, whatever we say doesn't determine how long they can live there anyway, right? I'm sure they've got a lease or some kind of agreement, maybe, hopefully. Maybe not.
An employment agreement,
What was that?
an employment agreement. Because she said some type of an agreement.
I don't know. That was just something I thought we might want to look at.
Yeah, I don't see during the agricultural season, I kind of agree with Andy about leaving temporary in. I don't know where we're headed if we take that out. This does give us, if we end up having some sort of an enforcement that we need to be concerned with, that we have that to come back on. Being temporary versus permanent.
Any others have concerns?
Well, I have a question. What purpose is that serving to identify it? I'm trying to figure out, if a farmer has housing that they want to provide, is there some reason that we need to identify length of stay, temporary, permanent? But what purpose is it serving?
Yeah, I mean, I think that temporary versus permanent is, so if they're no longer farming, or something, I mean, it does need to be tied to the agricultural use. The housing itself does. So if the farmer sells and there's no one operating a farm, then they wouldn't be able to use that housing. But I guess, if somebody wants to live there permanently, I would think that, I don't know the specifics of it. I don't know about like well and septic. I'm assuming even when they put them in as temporary quarters, they would need to provide those in the proper capacity for that. But we don't really talk about employee housing. I'm going to say this and then I think regret saying it. Let me double check.
Well, I mean, does it refer back to like a required square footage or?
Well, that's what
to
I
make
was.
it In
Yeah.
that,
It distinguishes it from an apartment, right?
yeah.
I was
But
going to
it's
say
serving
that we
some
don't say
purpose.
what it is. It could be campers. It could be a single wide. It could be a permanent house. It could be a house that has apartments in it. We don't talk about what the housing looks like. I don't think. I'm going to double check that right now. Because in our current ordinance, we do not. But we do have some standards. Located in an area that will be the least impact on the agricultural resource, 1 tenant house for each 10 acres. And then it has to be occupied by the agricultural employee. So that's the requirements of what it is. So if you had 100 acres, you could have 10 homes for your employees that are besides the main dwelling where the family lives or may not live there. But we don't talk about what those look like. So far, I mean, I know that we've had some where they've replaced single wide mobile homes. They were older and they brought in new ones. That just happened this last year for that. I don't have another example in the township. Maybe someone else does of someone that has it. I'm guessing most of them, you don't even probably realize that they're employee housing. But. Any additional thoughts on that definition? Just remove the season.
Yes, that last phrase.
Okay. Next definition.
Apartment building or apartment? Oh, apartment. I thought maybe we should strike in a duplex apartment building or commercial building. Just leave a room or suite of rooms in which each suite is arranged and blah, blah, blah. And then when I got down to apartment building, it says on the second or third to last line, 3 or more dwelling units per lot. Just kind of made me feel like, yeah, it's not appropriate for duplex to be under apartment.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Do we have another term for that?
Yeah, I think so.
For duplex?
Yeah.
Yes, we do have duplex.
Yep.
Yeah, so that would be.
And then apartment buildings may be developed as a site condominium where each unit has separate ownership, I guess. Would that muddy the waters or anything? Make it
It doesn't
confusing?
have to stay there. I mean, they can regardless if it says that or not under the law.
Gotcha.
Any other comments on A terms? Moving into B terms?
I had a question, one more A, automobile sales. and
Oh.
leasing.
Automobile sales and rentals. Okay.
These are just my notes, I don't remember them. How about a mobile home trailer, like a double wide? We don't have a definition of a trailer.
Okay. Let me look. We may call it something else or do something else. Oops, that's what I wanted to do.
And then the definition doesn't make mention of renting, only sales, but the automobile sales and rentals, but we don't talk about renting in the definition at all.
Okay. And when you say trailers, you're talking about like a snowmobile trailer, a motorcycle trailer. You're not talking about or a travel trailer. You're not talking about a mobile home trailer.
Yeah, we do have a mobile home trailer.
I think manufactured or something.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify, you're talking about something you traditionally would pull behind your car or truck, right? When you say trailer.
I have no idea.
Well, I think in this case, because it's under the heading of automobile sales and rentals, a type of, but it says any type of trailer. So yeah, I think we should be clear what that trailer means so that somebody doesn't try to put
Yeah,
some mobile homes.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, now I'm ready for Bs. Bed and breakfast establishment. I would whack while renting rooms to lodgers, because it's just like saying it twice. Bedroom, this was one, it says it has to have a closet and a window. Does it really have to have a closet? I know we have a lot of like maybe old houses that don't have closets, they use armoires, and maybe this isn't a thing, but I feel like there's old houses that don't.
Yeah, old houses do not. The current building code calls it a bedroom if it has a closet.
Gotcha.
So that's where we do it. I think if you took out closet, a lot of people try to get around saying it's a bedroom if it doesn't have a closet, right now. Or if you're putting finishing area like above your garage, they won't put closets in them because it's not a bedroom then, type of thing. You don't have to say has a closet. You don't have to follow that. These are your own definitions. So if there's no definition, you go to the dictionary. That's what the definition is. If you write a definition, that becomes the definition for the township. So it can say whatever you want to call a bedroom. You could call a bedroom is defined as a kitchen, what you traditionally think is a kitchen if you wanted to. So you tell me. Do you want your bedrooms
I
and
don't have
closets
a
or not?
concern with the closet being there, but I do think, well, I get a little more nervous about windows, even though, because from egress, things of that nature, so. But I don't have an issue with closet being struck. What do others think?
To remove closet?
Well, I think the closet idea was tied to septic requirements. And I think the current requirement it's square footage. It doesn't matter if it's even a bedroom, but it's the
You
square
mean
footage.
for septic?
Yes.
No, for septic, it does relate to bedrooms. I know because I just applied
Oh.
recently. And
And it
they
has to have a closet to be called.
didn't
bedroom.
say anything about closet. They just said, are you increasing the number of bedrooms? They never asked about closets one way or the other.
Okay, all right, then, because I know somebody that did an addition,
Hmm.
that it didn't have a closet, so they were saying this is not a bedroom, and they said it doesn't matter if it has a
Oh,
closet, it's additional space and somebody can sleep in here.
no.
So I'm just thinking it should match, if that's the purpose of having the closet in this definition.
Yeah.
It should kind of match with what the building requirements are.
Well, I can look at building. How it's correct. I can just double check and see what those two say to see if it's similar or not to that.
Okay. I don't feel strongly either way.
It's another thing to confuse people
Yeah.
who are,
Oh, for
Right.
sure.
So you can have a house with no bedrooms if you just don't put a closet in.
well, but
Zero
the
bedroom,
new,
five
the new
offices.
requirements, it doesn't matter what you're calling it, it's square footage. So, but you're saying they asked about bedrooms, so, I don't know.
More bedrooms, bigger your drain field.
Yes, absolutely. So, any other Bs?
Yeah.
Uh,
Business services. I just highlighted the whole thing. Either I didn't get it, wasn't expecting to be, it wasn't what I expected it to be, that it definition clashes with, I don't know. Shouldn't a service be services to a building, anything that isn't a product? It does not include maintenance, repair, and office uses such as accounting, advertising, architectural design. These to me are services. Why are they not included?
Okay.
But maybe I'm totally misunderstanding it.
Well, well, if everybody kind of agrees that those are services and could be business services, I may have those listed as like an office or some other use, and we could combine the two. You know, there's nothing to say that we can't do that. I'm all about cutting and combining, so.
Maybe you don't even have to include them.
Okay. Well, if I scratch this term does not include, I just want to make sure they're not defined somewhere else so that they have
Right.
two definitions.
It is awfully specific, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I will look at that.
Okay. Any other thing from anybody so far on B, A or B? Moving on to C. I have a question on campground.
Mhm.
How was this definition arrived at? Do you know where this came from?
This is kind of just a general definition that
That you've seen in other zoning ordinances?
yeah, I don't think, well, let me look. We do have a definition in our current ordinance. Come on.
Yeah,
And
I think the
it's,
definition seems fine. It was more just
yeah,
questions over consistency in that.
yeah. It is different than our current definition, which our current definition, I'll read it here. A parcel or tract of land under control of a person in which sites are offered for the use of the public, either free of charge or for a fee, for the establishment of temporary living quarters for 5 or more recreational units, which include travel trailers as defined by this ordinance. One of the things, I don't remember if we talked about it here or not, is campground and park models. So a park model is one that you park for the whole season. You know, you bring it in and they are a little bit kind of nicer, like they might have a nice sliding door with a porch even or something like that. And the intent is you don't move them around every weekend like you think of a typical campground. So they definitely are are more permanent. The state law under their licensing does allow for park models and counts them as a site. You know, there's still a site and they're renting it, but it's a seasonal rental of that site. And that stays there the whole season. I only mention that because in Milton, there was a discussion over, can park models be in a campground or is that a different use? I don't know if anybody has any feelings on Campgrounds with-
I've never heard of that, actually.
with park models or staying for extended periods of time or anything like that.
I did have it, we don't say anything about like, is it temporary? I just had for a limited period of time, kind of understand what prorated are placed for a limited period of time.
Oh, for a limited period of time, yeah.
And then, I don't know, living purposes in connection with the recreational pursuits or mode of travel of the general public, and that last mode of travel of the general public, I didn't really get that.
What are you focused on right now?
The last mode of travel of the general public,
Last sentence in campground.
Oh,
I don't know if it makes sense to everybody else, cool, but I thought it was weird. Yes. Thank you.
Now that the heat's running.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could remove or mode of travel of the general public from that last part of the sentence, just end at recreational pursuits. Does that make more sense? That fits with your comment?
it's fine with me.
Anything else in your Cs?
Condominium,
Yes.
that's a great big
Yes.
definition there. I assume that's got to be pretty tight because of the law that it pertains to it, because it even references the law there. So was that lifted?
This is, yeah.
Is it significantly different than our current ordinance, I should say?
I would guess that our current ordinance does not talk about. No,
Does not talk about it?
no, it does not.
Since we have had recently a discussion about a proposed condominium development,
Oh,
is there
it
anything
does.
within this definition that we should be concerned about or not?
No, I mean, it mirrors kind of state law and what's allowed for condominiums and the Condominium Act. So the existing ordinance just references the Condominium Act and then a condominium project and a condominium unit. But we have more details in the draft about developments as a condominium.
Mhm. Okay, D terms? There's our famous density word again.
I think we talked about cottage industry when we were talking about all the various kinds of small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, D terms.
So, no, what was your comment about?
Well,
cottage?
I don't know that if we need it anymore. I thought that maybe we
Yeah, we did. I have a note about cottage industries. We may be able to cut that.
consolidated some
struck
of
it?
those
Yeah.
Strike it?
definitions.
Perfect.
Development, can you put a comma after the first building?
Comma after.
Construction of a new building, comma, reconstruction of an existing building.
Yes.
In dwelling, I think I read this one when I was really tired, but is the intent of this to say that tents aren't dwellings, but all the other things listed would be because they fall under the definition of a recreational vehicle? Yeah, this is weird.
Say your comment again?
My note was, is the intent of this to say that tents aren't dwellings, but all the other things listed would be because they fall under the definition of recreational vehicle?
Oh, not defined as a recreational vehicle. I'll have to read it in whole. I'll just make a note to review. Good stuff.
Any other questions or comments on D terms? Moving into E terms? Moving into F terms.
I guess educational institutions got a little poetic there in the middle. I don't know if that's cultivation of the mind or the inculcation of clearer sense of moral and spiritual values. After educational institution, we might know what we're talking about.
I need to increase my education just to understand what it means. You want to change it?
Probably apply a little brevity to it, right? To take out some.
Clarify it?
Yeah, I would say after
Sure.
academic instruction, it's probably, the rest is.
Is anyone here in the educational fields that can comment and provide some? Denise, you got a good sense for this?
Yeah, it's a little verbose. I don't think we need all that.
I can take out after academic instruction. I can take out after academic instruction.
Sounds good. Moving into F terms.
Family,
Yeah.
why 3 additional persons?
Family is a tough definition.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference? One to go higher or lower, or you don't want to have a number, or?
Well, I guess my first question is why 3? And then maybe adjacent to that is why a number? And then we get to the, it's a dartboard otherwise, right? I mean, I don't know.
I
What's
guess that maybe you could only claim 3 additional children that are not your children when they live with you. I was just making something up, though. I agreed. It was like, three.
Seems,
I'd have to go back
Great.
and look. I don't have a good answer for you. My answer is going to sound real. I don't have a good answer for you. I will have to go back and look because, the courts kind of tell us what the definition of family is. And I
Right.
don't know if 3 came from that or if this has been expanded or not. So I'll just have to look into it. I don't remember.
I mean, we don't want to limit the domestic staff of our residents, right?
Right.
Kind of similar for family childcare. Why is it between 1 and 7?
That family childcare home is based on what the state law says. for
Okay.
them.
Okay.
And actually, I'm going to update this definition because the law has changed since I wrote this ordinance. So now it would say, so this says 1 but less than 7, so it was 1 to 6. The law now allows up to 7. Yeah, you get a bonus kid now. So, and
Anything after that, you have to have another adult.
person,
It's
yeah.
because they just sit there and look at their phones, so it's easier to watch them.
So I'll have to look, there's another childcare one somewhere in here. I'll have to, 'cause that one now is like 8, used to be 7 to 12, and now it must be 8 to 13. They added another one to try to expand, people that were already licensed to be able to take another kid in to help with the childcare crisis that we're under. So.
Do we have to keep maintaining it? Can we just refer to where it's
We
always
could
up to date?
refer to it. I mean, that is always another option where we would just say child family care home as defined by the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, if you'd like.
It's nice to have it in there, make
That
it
seems
easier,
good.
but
Yeah.
Okay. If you like that.
If the law changes, we don't want people having to come back for
Right.
Mhm.
yeah.
special use for their 8th kid.
Yep, I will update that just to reference state law.
Foster care definition might be similar in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those did not change, but I could, the foster care family home and group home and foster child, I could reference the state law related to those too, if you'd like.
Would simplify it.
Yeah. And I can take a look at some of the other ones too that might be in here that we could just reference state law.
G terms?
This is the other one, that group child care home.
Oh, yeah. Why are solar installations referred as ground mounted? I mean, where else are they going to be?
And like roof mounted.
Oh, I see. So you're just talking about, okay.
And we left in personal use for solar, but we took out utility grades for the solar farms.
H, I, J, K.
I think we're home-based business.
Oh, yeah, home
The-
based business
the-
got away.
Sorry, the private garage definition isn't limiting, it only refers to vehicles.
And not junk.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know about your garage. Sometimes the vehicles don't fit.
I have
Um,
personal trophies. and
I
treasures.
just, is it limiting in some way? I don't.
I see where you're headed, yes.
Yeah.
I think we could expand that. So I'm going to add personal treasures to the definition.
Yeah. I like that.
For the expansion of the.
I will add a definition for home-based business. So would you, anything through K then? Mhm. No? Else?
L,
Okay, M's?
Manufactured home, the first line, after to June 15th.
Mm-hmm.
So again, is there a definition for these? I mean, I'm not familiar with the reason for the date.
There is, I don't know where it comes from though. It might just be what like HUD calls them versus somebody else. But I don't know if it comes out of a law.
I know a lot of banks will not finance a mobile home older than a 76.
Because it doesn't have a plate. I'll have to look. I can get you an answer. I don't know the answer right now.
We just have this definition that seems to come from somewhere, and then we talk about the permanent chassis of metal beams, and I don't,
Yeah, I will, I can double check.
as long as it's all consistent, I guess, we're not.
So speaking of consistency, all these different lot definitions,
Mm-hmm.
I know we spent some time in whatever section it was where you had your diagrams in there
Yeah.
about lots and
Yeah.
stuff. I assume this is all part of that same model? It was all
Correct.
sprinkled and tied together? Okay.
Yeah. And I'll read through all the definitions again, but definitions are just a big part as far as zoning. As a zoning administrator, we rely on definitions a lot. So I'll be reading through them again and making sure to update and revise based on the language we add or change. So we're good with L's?
M's?
Oh, we were in M's, yep.
I think we're into N's now.
Yeah, N is in Nancy.
Oh. Anything in N? Can we move into O? There's that ordinary high water thing again. We never did.
Oh, yep, we didn't. Water's edge. See, actually, I moved it. It's not even an O's. We got to go to W's.
Yes.
We're not there yet.
Good.
Don't
All right,
get
we'll
ahead of
skip it.
yourself.
We'll skip it. Come back later.
Wait till we get to the W's. P's. Q's are easy. R.
I bet X is pretty easy too.
Let's see. Well, I need a definition for. Any S's?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I have to figure out what my notes mean. Recreational facility, why are there the exclusions?
Recreational facility.
Is recreational, oh, I see, I'm sorry, I misread it.
Okay.
Including but not limited to.
Mhm.
Okay. And
What?
retail, are we? I guess there are some very specific definitions for retail sales here.
Mm-hmm.
I had the same question. Why do we need all those?
Yeah.
Just do retail sales just broadly.
Why couldn't A, B, C, and D just be cut? Or are there specific reasons you think that they're highlighted there?
Does it include everything? Does it, I mean,
The only thing I want to do is just make sure that I didn't say like food and beverage retail as a use listed and just call it retail sales. I'm fine with that.
Others have an issue with that because it is a bunch of language being struck.
I'll just make sure we don't use those terms anywhere.
Okay.
Okay.
Junkyard, you could probably put a picture of our yard right now with all my son's crap laying around.
Obviously, seawall is blank, is that?
Yes.
Okay. Seems like that might be an issue. I'm sure we all want to dive deeply into the sexually oriented business definitions.
Mm-hmm.
And those are pretty tight legally, aren't they?
Yeah.
'Cause- Yeah.
Yeah. And they're very craftedly put, so a lot of times, this is just a side note, we put them under the sexually oriented businesses and then we do A, B, C, D, because otherwise you end up with your first definitions end up being adult arcade, adult bookstore, when you start reading your definitions.
Hmm.
And a lot of communities didn't like that to be how you start reading definitions. So we started putting them, under kind of the use and then those definitions of uses.
That's funny, actually. So actually, going back to, we had the section on the retail businesses and we took out A, B, C, and D. And I know it's completely different, obviously, but you're going to double check to make sure, but why, there must be a reason why there was so much definition around those.
Yeah, a lot of times we break out those uses into different types of retail because communities don't like just saying retail. I would rather just say retail because personally,
Okay.
I don't care what you're selling.
Okay.
Those types of retail uses, there's not a lot of differentiation between traffic or anything like that. But sometimes, like if you have a neighborhood and say you want to allow a 7-Eleven in your neighborhood or something like, probably not but something like that, a small convenience store, you could use one of those retail uses to break down so that you could allow the small retail in your neighborhoods and larger in your commercial districts. But I don't think we have any of that going on here right now.
Okay. Anything as other S definitions?
And this applies back to the microbrewery as well, but small distillery, small winery, we have gallon definitions.
Mm-hmm.
Does that come from somewhere or?
That comes from state law, so that can be one where I'll reference state law instead.
Okay. I trusted that you had gotten it there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those two we would.
Special land use, there's a second to last line, by should be B.
And I got, oh, so we don't have any, okay. Okay, any more S's?
Structure. I remember that was a pretty,
Yeah, I have a note here. Is this holistic enough? What about portions of structures like the eave? So I'm gonna look at structure.
yeah, and there was, I think it might have been the zoning board of appeals had some pretty
Oh,
strong
yep.
views on this. So we should just check to make sure that we address any concerns that they raised because they had to address a major issue there.
Did you get a letter at last planning commission?
It was either last or the one before that.
And so we should talk about if you want to, planning commission, move forward that definition that the zoning board of appeals made that interpretation on, or if you think it should be something different. So the ZBA basically said that if it has rebar in it, it's a structure. If it does not have rebar, it is not a structure.
And I think that there were problems with that.
Right. I personally would like to abandon the ZBA's interpretation of a structure. I don't agree with the whole rebar, non-rebar situation.
And I think and I recall when it was a letter or somebody, I think somebody had come up and made comments and I thought that they were advocating not having the rebar in the definition.
I don't remember that part of it.
Okay.
One way or the other, I think that it would be the planning commission should make a decision, and then I think ultimately the township board will make that policy decision for if that definition should change and be something different than what the ZBA says. This definition that is in the draft is a very typical structure definition.
Used in multiple townships or
Right.
communities across.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that the letter related to a seawall, right? Wasn't that the-
Correct.
And whether that was a structure or not.
Right. And we need to write a definition for seawall. So do you want a seawall to be a structure? Because it'll start and say a structure that, retains earth or prevents the erosion due to water or something. I don't know.
Well, under this definition, a seawall would clearly be part of that,
Right.
which makes sense.
Which eliminates the rebar question.
Right. And everybody's comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
T's?
Do we have something against above-ground swimming pools? Actually, more to the point, do they not have to be permitted? This is,
Great point.
So there's just not care about them?
Well,
There's a lot of above ground swimming pools.
Yeah, do we care about
Yeah, I mean, I think this definition's a
Oh,
little potentially outdated because of how popular and easy it is to obtain an above ground swimming pool.
right,
Yeah.
and might not require fencing and other protective measures, is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Or the attractive nuisance.
That makes sense. T terms? Do we need the word triplex if we've got duplex and then apartments?
No, and I'm actually going to revise. I don't remember if I said this to you or not, but I've started to use numbers. So instead of saying single family dwelling, duplex, triplex, I do one family dwelling, two family dwelling. So they all stay together in your table. So it's really easy to see if they're allowed or not. And the same with definitions. So that would be updated, based on that. And then if it's three or more is instead of saying multifamily dwelling, it's three or more dwelling, family dwelling or something like that. Because I just find it easier to use in that way. And also for the public to be able to say, oh, 1, 2, 3 type of thing. And it's at the top of the list. You don't have to read through the whole thing. So here's the utility trailer definition.
There we go.
So I just need to bring utility trailer up to automobile.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Does
Anything with
does that
U and
need to
V?
be excluded as something you live in or sleep in? I don't,
No, I think that wouldn't hurt to add to the definition.
what are we adding? That you don't live in it?
Yeah.
Like
Stay in
permanently?
Sweden or live in.
It's good, because I think my
Said it would
wife
be a
was thinking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anything with U or V? Anything further with U or V? And W, there's Water's Edge.
You can see I didn't even finish it because I didn't know what to put. I started.
Small warehousing and distribution, inflammable, I think should be flammable. Just a,
Really good catch.
water's edge.
So what are you thinking on this Water's Edge thing here?
Well, first of all, well, I don't know. It's complicated. I'm not even sure the one with Lake Michigan is appropriate.
I think we ought to look at, on the inland lakes, at the top of bank.
Top of bank. We got a top of bank over here. Anyone else?
What do we have in the current
Bank.
ordinance?
Yeah. Top of the
The
bank.
current
Falls down.
ordinance is.
And as a point of clarity, the reason that I use the top of bank is in another life, wherever we had jurisdictional powers over any type of tributaries of sorts, creeks, ditch banks, it allowed us to take the top edge of that bank, because it's gonna, erosion will take place, but you had to have a point there that you would get, at that would be 150 feet. So it was 75 foot for working purposes, but we always use the top of the bank to the center of the tributary. But that was just, wherever that bank was, is where you started. Just to throw it out for discussion.
And there are quite a few communities that do use top of bank, especially for rivers and streams,
Right.
as a way to measure from there. Our current ordinance says ordinary high water mark. A point on the Lake Michigan shore at the elevation of 580.5 feet above mean sea level.
So that it's defined as ordinary high water mark and not Water's Edge?
Correct, in the current zoning ordinance.
So they don't have anything in there about Torch Lake as an example?
Right, let me go and look in Article 2 where we have this discussion.
Because
We
that,
talked about it a lot.
because the ordinary high water mark is a different, in my view, would be a different definition than Water's Edge.
Yeah, and I'm trying to put them all into one. I can pull them back out, but what do I want to see here? Why? So the discussion kind of was in 216, item B, says no structures may be located within 50 feet of the high water mark of 590.8 feet above sea level of Torch Lake or within 50 feet of the ordinary high water mark of Lake Michigan. And then it goes down. And that was what we changed it in 2021. So not just, but almost 3 years ago here, coming March, because it's March 20, yeah. So we changed it to that.
Well, for one thing, for Kevin's point, that would address lakes, or at least that's a definition for lakes. It doesn't account for rivers. We do have some, right?
Right.
So something like what he said when it pertains to, so you almost have three categories, like Michigan,
Mhm.
I guess Torch Lake would be the only other one. And then, well, I guess is there any other lakes besides those?
No, I think
might be.
Torch is the only.
Torch is the only lake, and then it's
Right.
just the rivers themselves.
Mhm.
Correct.
Correct?
Right.
Yeah. So just remember that there's a lot of conversations around it. It's pretty complicated. And so I don't want to get us bogged down in trying to figure this out now.
No.
What was that?
Said no?
Mm-mm.
Okay. This probably actually needs to be updated to reflect what was added in here. Actually, it was September of 21, though. I think we made that part of the change because there's 2 dates here. To see if it's consistent. My thought is, because we are trying to clarify in this draft and be compliant with law and things like that, that maybe, I think it would be good to define rivers and streams, since we don't, to make sure that we do have the proper setbacks from those. But maybe not to change how we measure it or where we measure it from our current ordinance, and circle back to it maybe after the master plan or something.
That's exactly what I'm suggesting. So
Perfect.
very well stated.
Have
Okay.
other townships had, I'm sure they've struggled with the same.
Mhm. This is I don't have good advice for you, because there's no right or wrong way to do it. About, I don't know if I would say half and half, but a lot of them use vegetation, top of bank, permanent vegetation to measure from. And there's a lot of them that use an elevation. Lake Michigan does have an established ordinary high water that the Army Corps puts out. Torch Lake does not. Based on some of the things we've heard here, although they're not from somebody that regulates a dam, or, Eagle or something like that, has said that Torch Lake doesn't have an established high water elevation. And I recall saying basically it's not regulated by the dam, so it doesn't change like that. But that's not my expertise either, to know how that all works. It's upriver of a dam. I don't know. Seems like if you didn't have a dam, the water elevation would change, I would think.
Right.
But that's not my expertise either. So.
Yes, I'd be curious if everybody agrees. We stick with the definitions we have, but add rivers and streams definition in there, and then the high bank type of concept, just to round it out and come back to it.
I say yes, as long as people that are qualified end up being the ones to
That figure
weigh
it
in.
out.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Like,
That's exactly
Not
what,
it.
I want to make sure we have the time to do it, and not just,
Are
Set
we
it
going to
for the
have
sake
to
of
then
setting it.
define what a river, stream? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
how big
it
a
kinda-
trickle of water is it, right? To
Right.
qualify.
Yeah. So I'll go through that whole process. Yep. Mhm. Unless Webster has a really good definition for river and we just walk away. But usually I'll say something. I'll probably back it into something that Eagle uses or the DNR uses for what their definition is, and that may come out of some sort of state law too. I don't know. Anyways, I'll travel down that rabbit hole.
great. So anything else for the rest of the W, X, Y, or Z. Hearing none.
Awesome.
So
Thank
Sarah,
you.
just to recap the process, so here, you're going to bring everything together. You're going to present it to all of us, probably in the January meeting.
Mhm.
We'll take it, come back in February, any final comments, package it up, hopefully then prepare for the hearing.
Mm.
Then after the hearing, we take it to, assuming we incorporate any changes that we may want to, then we take it to the county
Mhm.
and then to the board.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any questions or concerns about that?
that's my goal. I'm gonna shoot for January to get it to you. Um,
That would be great.
All things work out.
Just start your card.
No, not
So the next item on the agenda was 2024 meeting calendar.
Yeah. So
You've
right
got-
now, oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, right now, we, meet on the second Tuesday at 7 PM. I know last year we kind of had entertained maybe moving it to a different date, day of the month. I know, Andy, I think Mondays work better for you. I don't know. I know we've had some change in memberships, so if there's any desire to,
You can't blame me for asking. How do people feel
Adjust.
about Mondays versus Tuesdays?
whatever.
Whatever.
I don't know. I remember Barbara not liking Mondays last year, but I don't know. Bill is not here, so we could ask. I mean, his calendar, he usually knows kind of weeks at a time. So I don't know specifically that a day of the week would be better or worse for him, more so than just,
Mine just kind of changes quickly, but it's easier for me to manage a Monday than it is Tuesdays because I usually have to travel west. So
yeah. I mean, Monday's fine with me. If I look at my calendar and Mondays that I have available, I have the first Monday or the fourth Monday. Does anybody have a preference?
Fourth, I vote fourth.
You like fourth?
fourth Monday.
Does anybody have a problem with the fourth Monday? Do you want to try it for 2024?
That'd be great.
I'll probably miss most of them in the summer because that's one of the days that we have games for softball.
Yeah.
I'm still coaching softball, so this time of year is not a problem.
Okay.
But when we start getting into spring and summer, I might not be able to make some of them.
Okay.
Anybody else okay with fourth Monday of the month? Other than, well, I guess we would be able to do that for January then, wouldn't we?
Yeah, and now that I say that, let me double check, make sure. Fourth Monday.
If you could check with Bill, that would be great.
Sure.
Yeah. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I already scheduled something on the fourth Monday in January. But there's a fifth Monday in January.
Well, as it is, I won't be able to make it for the second Tuesday of January.
Okay. What if let's just do the fourth Monday and then,
Maybe we have a special meeting in January.
yeah, we would cancel regular and move it based on what I can gather.
That would be great.
Would that work okay? Because then you can all sit with your calendars and we can figure out a day that works for everybody. Or I can also try to see if I can move that fourth Monday to my meeting I already have right now. Maybe I can move that to the fifth one. So, okay. So we would just need a motion then to set your 2024 regular meeting dates to be the fourth Monday at 7 PM.
Are we going to check with Bill or not, though? Are we just going to make that decision now? and it
I
is
think
what it
just
is?
make the decision and we can
Okay.
always, if we get to January and we're like, that was a bad idea, we change it
We
again.
Change it. Okay.
What do you want to do? If it falls on a holiday, do you want to go to the Tuesday or do you want to move it a week? Do you want to deal with it when we get to that? Look at May and be like, right. Yeah. We can just deal with that on a case by case basis when we get to that day.
Memorial Day, because we're talking the fourth Monday of the month, right?
I thought it was the 4th. I would just look quickly at
Oh.
the calendar. Falls early this year.
We'll just make that and
Yeah,
then we'll make
so-
a
Yeah,
calendar.
just do it.
Get a-
Yeah.
We have a motion?
I'll make a motion to move the meetings to the fourth Monday of each month
At 7 PM.
at 7 PM.
Have a second? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's move on from the new business part of the agenda to ongoing reports. Sarah, do you have anything to report? I think you handed out something.
You have a report on your desk. I was gonna say, I think you received it in email too, right? I asked Jackie to start emailing them out just at the beginning of the month because then you had it, the ZBA would have it because they don't have a meeting every month. And then you can always take a look at it, and if you have any questions, get a hold of us related to that report. I don't know if that's something you're interested in receiving or not, you know?
I prefer all of mine digital.
Okay.
Okay,
I
Yeah.
don't think there's anything additional. I was trying to think. I don't have any applications I know that are coming in front of you for the future right now. So I haven't been talking to anybody about any applications. And then the only thing you'll notice on here is we've got the Volkers. This was a violation and complaint, and we did go to circuit court, and the judge ordered them to pay us and remove they were living in a travel trailer on their property, was the case. And so we issued tickets. We went to it through a formal hearing. They have appealed that from district court to circuit court. I'm sorry. That's incorrect in that listing. Because all your tickets, just like a traffic ticket, you go to district court to pay your traffic ticket. So district court heard the hearing. And then if you appeal that decision, it goes to circuit court. So they have appealed it. Right now, there was a date scheduled for January, but I think it's going to get rescheduled for that. So that's just in process. Kind of interest, but it has nothing to do with you at all. So
before we move into the PC representative of the ZBA, I forgot to mention one thing. Sarah, when we meet in January, whenever that is, guess I'd be curious if the rest of the planning commission would find this valuable. I would like to request that Sarah propose a process of how we, start working through the master plan. Just outline 6 or 8 kind of bullets about how we would go about it, that we can start driving that conversation. And one of the things that I think we need is because we do have $15,000 to use in the budget to get this process started. And I think we should use that as part of a discovery aspect of it, maybe even potentially start building a survey to engage the community, or at least designing that survey, so that we can then scope out what we're going to need more broadly for next year when we start planning for fiscal year. So does that make sense to everybody for having Sarah do that? We'll do that in January. Sarah, would you be able to prepare that by January?
yeah, let me just make a note here to master plan memo in process. Okay, yep, not a problem.
Sarah, do you have a really cool presentation with pretty pictures and stuff that you usually give to people? Like, these are all the possibilities.
I might be able to come up with some sort of a PowerPoint presentation for you.
Very cool.
That would be
Lighten
cool.
up your January evening, right?
That would be cool.
Do you want to know? I know that some of you went through like the master planning course and that. I mean, you want me to kind of do basic, just kind of a quick refresher on the whole master planning process? Would that be helpful for you?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll do a presentation. I'll do a little.
And if you have any, I think to Laura's point, if you've got examples to bring to us that we can see what's
Sure.
worked well, that have gotten good, strong feedback.
Sure. Well, that'll be
Okay.
fun.
Planning Commission representative of the ZBA. Is that okay?
We met last month and basically reorganized the board for 2024.
Okay. Anything else? Jason, anything from the board?
Yeah, we didn't have any old or new business. We did have a few items on board discussion. and I'll pass it around if you guys want, but some estimates for the chip and seal, and these are the roads that they're planning on doing in 2024. The Barnes Park issue looks like is finally put to bed. And from my understanding, I think they're going to reduce 15 or 17 campsites from the Barnes Park. And
They're going to reduce?
yes, so I don't know if I'm sure you guys are aware that they added some sites.
I know there's some like right when you come right in the middle, it seemed like it was pretty.
So they added some sites, and Barnes Park is part of our township, so they didn't go through our zoning and raised a big flag, and it went, I don't know if it went to court, but I have a piece of paper here from the administrator here, and you can read that too if you want, but it basically says that should the county decide to add campsites or otherwise expand Barnes Park Campground in the future, it will seek township approval prior to undertaking any addition of campsites or expansion of the campground. So, anyway,
Interesting.
sounds like we got that all figured out, and they're going to take some of those campsites away that they added on, so. If anybody wants to know what's gonna be doing, what roads they're gonna do, I have it right
I would
here.
like to see that, just out of curiosity.
You're on there.
Oh, cool. That's all I care about. So, okay, I guess that's it. Any questions for Jason? Okay, we move into public comment. If anyone has any public comments to make, please step forward.
I actually would like to say one more thing, and I don't know if anybody wants to attend it, but we do have our, what is it? I lost it. Our dates for this January. Every Wednesday, we're going to be here meeting and doing our budget. So on different things on each Wednesday. So that'll be all January if anybody wants to come and listen to that.
Okay, great. Thank you. So concerns of the commission. I don't have any concerns tonight. If we can get that master planning process kicked off, I'll feel good about it. But appreciate everybody's support and diligence going through this zoning amendment. It's been a big deal and a lot of work for people. So appreciate it. Anything from the members?
Public comment?
Can you stand up to the
Yes.
mic, please?
Yes, thank you.
Again, this might be simple, but I just want to know, did you guys get an update or really understand what took place last year and what we were able to accomplish and how much we were able to give back by doing what we're doing at the airport? Did you guys get any of that?
I read something somewhere. I couldn't tell
I
you
do
where it was.
remember seeing something. Something was provided.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, just to give you an update,
Part of the
and again,
submission.
I appreciate you guys supporting us in this, but we raised just over $30,000 last year to give to 5 of the local charities that are here. We gave 63 flights to people that have never been in the air before, very first flights. And one thing that we did is we helped a veteran pay for training. His dream was always to fly, but he got injured and no longer able to walk. And we provided him with the training to get into a cart, paramotor, got him his own cart, went through the training, and now he's flying on his own as a disabled veteran through the means of what we're doing over here at the airport. So again, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you guys supporting us because we're really doing some good work over here.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Anything else, Sarah?
Nothing additional?
Okay, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So we're
Time
adjourned
is
at
8:46.
Yes.